My name is Kate Brown, and I am 42 years old. I have a family of 5. My husband Mike, my 18-year-old eldest daughter Carol, my 16-year-old second daughter Kathy, and my 12-year-old youngest daughter Emily. With all the girls except my husband, every day is lively. It seems my husband always wanted daughters, and he dotes on them so much that people around us are envious. Just watching him with our daughters makes me happy. At that time, I never imagined that my husband would betray me. Hello? I just made some croquettes, and I have plenty, so why don't you come over and eat?
That sounds delicious. Thanks for always inviting me.
My sister Beth also lives nearby. She lives alone because her husband passed away due to illness. Since my family is large, we usually make plenty of side dishes, so it was a regular occurrence for us to invite my sister and have meals together. Her husband passed away last year. Although she seems fine, I was concerned, so inviting her was also a chance to check on her. Beth, aren't you drinking a bit too much?
No, I'm fine.
It's rare to see you drinking so much, Beth.
When she came over, she said she was feeling lonely. It hasn't been long since her husband passed away. That day, my sister, unusually, started to vent while drinking. She was drinking fast, and, as expected, she ended up passing out. Since I had work the next day, I asked Mike to take her home. Sorry to ask you when you're tired from work.
Don't worry about it. She lives nearby, right? I'll be back soon.
Mike doesn't drink, so he's reliable in situations like this. He put my drunk sister in the car and left. However, when an hour passed and he hadn't returned, I started to worry. Finally, after an hour and a half, Mike came back. You were late. Did something happen? Is everything okay?
As soon as we got to her place, Beth threw up.
That must have been tough.
I couldn't just leave her like that, so I helped her out.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
She was asleep by the time I left, so there's nothing to worry about.
After explaining why he was late, Mike headed to the bathroom. But he seemed distant, avoiding eye contact with me. Although it bothered me, he was his usual self afterward, so I thought it was just my imagination and didn't pay much attention to it. But starting the next day, Mike suddenly started coming home late.
Recently, I've been listening to my coworkers' concerns, so I might be late again today.
Work brings its own set of worries, doesn't it? Keep up the good work. My husband told me he was staying late to listen to his coworkers' concerns. Believing that listening to coworkers is part of the work, I trusted him. But that was a mistake. A few months later, an incident happened that confirmed the uneasy feeling I had that day. As usual, I invited my sister over for dinner and was busy with preparations. Suddenly, the living room door opened, and Mike came home with my sister. The next thing I knew, he suddenly said something unbelievable.
We have a child together.
What?
I'm cutting ties with this money-draining family.
My husband suddenly revealed something shocking. For a moment, I couldn't comprehend what he was saying, but I started thinking calmly. In truth, my husband had always had a habit of cheating, and this wasn't the first time. Back then, people around me told me, turn a blind eye to 1 or 2 affairs, and I forgave him after he promised never to do it again. But now, not only had he cheated again, but the other woman was my own sister. Then, my eldest and second daughters spoke up.
If that's the case, I'll go with Dad. Mom doesn't have financial capability, and it would be a problem if I couldn't go to college.
I agree. I just started high school, and I don't want to quit.
Both of them said they would go with my husband if we divorced. Tears welled up as I realized my daughters thought of me that way. But I thought, if that's what they've decided, there's nothing I can do. Here's the divorce papers. I'll take the youngest with me.
What? You're really going to divorce me so easily?
I told you last time that there wouldn't be a next time. I've had these divorce papers ready for when this would happen again.
What? Kids are a nuisance. You should take care of all of them yourself.
Beth opposed my eldest and second daughters going with my husband. But when they flattered her, she seemed to be in a better mood.
Beth, you're beautiful, and I've always thought it would be great if you were my mom.
You and Dad are perfect together, and I'm happy to be your daughter, too.
Is that so? I'm happy to suddenly become a mom of 3.
My husband signed the divorce papers on the spot and handed them to me without hesitation. He seemed completely sure of his decision, laughing with Beth and our 2 daughters.
Sorry for stealing your husband, Kate.
I'll have to work hard for the child that's on the way and for the daughters in front of me.
It seemed they no longer cared about me at all, as Mike asked me to take care of our youngest. That same day, I packed my things, went to the court and filed for divorce. On the way back from the court, I called a close friend, who offered to let me stay for a few days. Since my friend works at a real estate company, I quickly found a new place to live with her help. I moved with my youngest to an apartment, leaving behind the house we once owned. It reminded me of when I lived alone, bringing a sense of nostalgia. I moved to a different place within the same school district for my youngest, so I no longer had to see my ex-husband or sister's faces. And thus, my ordinary days continued. One day. I'm making hamburgers for dinner tonight.
Yay! I love your hamburger, Mom.
As my youngest daughter and I were about to sit down for dinner, the doorbell rang. Ding dong. I opened the door to find Carol and Kathy standing there. Even though they went with my ex-husband, they were still my daughters, so I had given them my new address. The 2 of them suddenly appeared and said, "We're coming in," as they stepped into the house. Once they sat down, they immediately began to apologize.
Mom, I'm really sorry for saying such horrible things back then.
I know I hurt you, but at the time, we didn't have any other choice.
Wait a minute. What are you talking about?
The truth is, we've known for a long time about Dad and Beth's affair.
What? You knew?
Yeah, like when you went to the bathroom, they'd get all close to each other.
I even saw them holding hands. So we expected this would happen and made a plan.
To my surprise, Carol and Kathy had noticed Mike and Beth's affair before I did. They said they pretended to go along with my ex-husband to sabotage his and Beth's new married life as a form of revenge. They apologized, saying they had to betray me in order to execute their plan. So, what exactly was the plan?
Dad always relied on you for everything related to school, right? I'm in my final year, so I asked him to handle getting brochures and going to parent-teacher meetings. Plus, I acted like a typical stressed-out student.
And I had a bunch of paperwork since I just started high school, so I asked him to handle that. We even had a parent-teacher meeting recently.
He was so stressed out, trying to balance work and childcare, probably because he'd never actually helped you before.
Exactly. He ended up asking Beth for help, but she's dealing with morning sickness and was in a terrible mood, so the whole atmosphere was awful.
Mike had never helped with any of the school stuff when our daughters were entering school or taking exams. I had always been the one writing papers late at night or researching schools between work. When I couldn't take time off for parent-teacher meetings, I asked him, but he refused, saying, "Kate's just a part-timer, right?" Now that he had taken custody, Mike and Beth were responsible for everything school-related. From what my daughters told me, it seemed they were both overwhelmed. How did the parent-teacher meetings go? Were the school documents submitted properly?
They stayed up all night writing those papers and turned them in this morning. They both looked exhausted, though.
Even though they're newlyweds, Mike has been a father to 3 daughters for years. But for Beth, this is her first time being a mom. And to 3 kids, no less. There's no way they'd have time to enjoy their newlywed life, I thought, finding it amusing.
Also, they don't understand a word we say. It's like we're speaking in code or something.
Exactly. Like when we say things like "that's lit," or "that's fire," or "it's the goat."
They're always like, "What are you saying? Speak properly." It's so annoying.
They don't join in and ask about modern slang like you do, Mom. The living room is always dead silent, and both of them look exhausted.
I see. I guess that kind of stuff is too advanced for them.
Anyway, I'm really sorry for betraying you, Mom. We just wanted to get Beth out of the house. And we didn't want you to be hurt anymore by staying with a father like him.
Hearing the real reason why my daughters went with my ex-husband, I felt relieved. I was touched that they had been thinking of me and acting to protect me, even in their own childlike way. Tears welled up as I realized how much they had grown.
By the way, we haven't done the legal adoption with Beth yet. So, can we live with you again starting today?
Yes, being with you, Mom, is where we feel the most at peace.
Of course you can. They said they wanted to live with me again. Not knowing the full story, I had thought I'd never live with them again. But to find out they distanced themselves to protect me and then came back, I felt like all my efforts raising them were worth it.
But, I still feel like there's something left to do.
Something left to do?
I left some stuff at that house. I need to go back and get it.
That night, after Emily fell asleep, the 3 of us, me, Carol, and Kathy, started planning our revenge. Then came the weekend. We headed back to that house once more. Since I still had a key to the house, we had no trouble entering. As we stepped into the living room, we found my ex-husband and sister relaxing. When they noticed us, they looked surprised but tried to strike up a conversation.
It's been a while. Do you need something?
I'm here to pick up the girls' things.
You too. I was wondering where you'd gone, and it turns out you were staying with Kate?
You've got some nerve. You and Beth didn't even bother to contact us.
Well, I figured you two were old enough, so I didn't think there was any need to worry.
That's a lie. You got tired of living with us and just left us alone, didn't you?
That's not true. You're both my precious daughters.
So, you're here to take their stuff? Does that mean you're going back to Kate's place?
Exactly. We've realized that you and Dad can't handle parenting. Beth, that way you can fully enjoy your newlywed life with Dad, right?
Although Carol had hit the nail on the head, both of them seemed irritated. Their faces showed that their reality wasn't quite the newlywed life they had imagined. Do you realize now how much I did for this family? The household ran smoothly because I took care of all the chores and parenting by myself. You were just earning money and doting on the girls. From what they told me, you were exhausted just from school interviews and paperwork. If that's too much for you, how do you plan to manage going forward? And Beth, aren't you going to be a mother soon? This should have been good practice for you. If needed, the girls said they'd stay a bit longer. Mike's true feelings began to slip out.
Kate, would you please take them back? I really do appreciate everything you did for the girls. But I've realized I'm not cut out for parenting.
If it's this hard, I shouldn't have even had a kid.
What are you saying? That baby is still going to be born whether you want it or not. Children grow up, they talk, and they go through school and all sorts of challenges. Parents are responsible for their children until they become adults. You're both over 40, right? Did you really think your newlywed life would be all sunshine and rainbows? At first, Mike had probably been thrilled when the girls said they wanted to live with him. Beth, too, must have thought she only needed to focus on the baby, as the girls were already grown. But neither my ex-husband, who had always left the childcare to me, nor Beth, who had no experience with raising children, found the situation as they had imagined.
So, Dad, have you started to appreciate what Mom did for us? With another baby on the way, do you think you can handle it? If not, feel free to just abandon us. We don't mind. You and Beth seem pretty overwhelmed by us anyway.
Mike, faced with his own daughter telling him it was okay to give up on them, finally admitted that he wasn't suited for parenting.
I'm sorry, girls. I just can't do it.
I can't either. And you girls are always using strange words. I can't understand a thing you say.
Then why did you even decide to have a child? Even if you say it's impossible, that baby will grow up, too. When they're teenagers, they'll use modern slang just like these girls. If Beth can't handle it, Mike is the one who will have to deal with it. If you can't take responsibility for a child, then you shouldn't have had one in the first place.
I thought it would be easier. You know, kids hang out with their friends, go to school, graduate. I didn't expect all this paperwork, meetings, and college tours. It's too much hassle. If that's what it takes, I don't want any kids.
I didn't sign up for this either. Isn't there a saying, children grow up without parents? There's just too much we have to do as parents. I can't handle it.
Thanks to my daughters, Mike and Beth had completely given up on parenting. But at least this way, we wouldn't have to fight over custody. Then, suddenly, Mike made an unthinkable proposal.
Beth, let's just give up on the baby.
What?
Kate, how about we try again? If I'm with you, I can just focus on myself. Of course, I'll keep loving the girls just like before. So, Kate, please handle the housework and childcare like you always did. I'm not cut out for parenting, but I still want to be with the girls.
What a selfish man. He didn't realize how much I was doing when we were together. And once he tried raising the girls himself, he gave up, admitting it wasn't for him. Yet, he still wanted to be with them and was asking me to go back to how things were before. I was at a loss for words. And as for Beth, asking her to give up the baby, it was her own fault. But the fact that they had even gotten involved in the first place was beyond absurd. Why did you even cheat in the first place?
When I saw Beth crying after losing her husband, I couldn't just leave her alone.
Even though you had a family, me and your daughters?
Ha ha ha. That's hilarious. So funny.
What's so funny?
He told me before. He said Kate has no allure as a woman anymore. He only sees you as a mother after giving birth to 3 kids. But he said I'm overflowing with feminine charm.
You're despicable. As Beth revealed Mike's words, he broke out in a cold sweat.
He said he doesn't feel any desire for you anymore, so I took care of him instead. It's only natural, right?
Dad, you're the worst.
Disgusting.
While I covered Emily's ears, my high school daughters heard everything, and they sent cold glares toward their father. Though I felt anger building up, I suddenly realized that Mike and I were already divorced. He was no longer part of my life, so there was no point in getting upset. All I wanted was to put an end to this situation as quickly as possible. Regardless, you both need to be punished for cheating. You, who cheated on your wife with her sister, and you, who cheated with your sister's husband, are both unforgivable. Let me be clear, as of today, I'm selling this house and the car, so pack your things and get out.
What? Wait a minute. This is my house, and I'm using that car.
This house and car are both under my name. And by the way, the bank accounts are under my name, too. Did you notice I already closed them? Mike and Beth both started panicking, shouting, "This can't be true." They were completely flustered. Back when we first got married, I had been earning more than Mike, so the house and car were purchased under my name. The bank accounts had also been opened in my name, and I'd closed them the day before. With help from a friend, I'd already arranged for the house and car to be sold.
What do you mean by as of today? Where are we supposed to go? You never told us any of this. You said we had plenty of money, a house, and a car, and I followed you because of that.
Mike's face turned pale as he realized he had completely forgotten that everything was in my name. Looking like he might collapse any second, he tried to reason with me.
Let's calm down for a moment.
I am calm.
We were married for a long time, weren't we? And your sister is pregnant.
And? That has nothing to do with me anymore.
If we lose the house and car, what will happen to us? At least leave us some cash. Just a little, please.
You seem desperate. Don't you have a job? You'll have your paycheck next month, right? When I said this, Mike started acting suspiciously, avoiding eye contact and looking around nervously. At that moment, I decided to drop a bombshell that even Beth didn't know. Oh, that's right. You don't have a job anymore, do you?
What? Wait, what is she talking about? Is she saying you're unemployed? Is that true?
With Beth grabbing his shirt and shaking him, Mike looked completely panicked. Before our divorce, I had started suspecting Mike's behavior and hired a private investigator. Not only did they find evidence of his affair with Beth, but they also discovered that Mike had been fired and was unemployed. The reason you left your job was because you were caught having an affair with someone at work, right? You were forced to quit because you couldn't stay there anymore.
Wow, Dad, you're the absolute worst.
I can't believe it. You're the worst father ever.
An affair?
Mike had been cheating with someone at work while also having an affair with Beth. He'd always had a tendency to cheat, even before this, when I forgave him for an affair with a coworker. This time, his workplace affair turned into a big scandal, leading to him being fired. Without telling me, Mike had pretended to still be working, probably lying about business trips and going to Beth's house instead.
Are you kidding me? You've been lying to me this whole time?
No! I love you, Beth! But I also love that other person, too!
What are you even talking about?
Beth slapped Mike repeatedly in a hysterical rage. His face turned bright red, swollen from the blows, and I couldn't help but laugh inside at how they were getting what they deserved. Still, no matter how ridiculous the situation, there was a child growing inside Beth. She was already 5 months pregnant, so it wasn't possible to terminate the pregnancy. Mike was too irresponsible to even realize that.
Please, Beth, abort the baby. I can't handle this anymore. The baby, you, everything.
Unfortunately, once you're past 5 months, it's no longer possible to abort. She is 7 months pregnant now, so you'll meet your baby in just 3 months.
No way.
As Mike collapsed in tears, I scattered the photos the private investigator had taken of his affairs. I threw some toward Beth as well, making my next move clear. You too will be paying for this. I'll be filing a claim for damages for the affair. And, Mike, you'll also be paying child support for the girls.
But I don't have the money to pay for damages and child support right now.
I'm pregnant, and I'm about to give birth. How am I supposed to pay for damages?
You'll have to borrow it if you need to. Cry to your parents or figure it out. And don't worry, I'll be doing this through a lawyer, so you can't run away. Mike, in tears, looked at his daughters, pleading, I'm sorry, but Carol and Kathy avoided his gaze, as if they no longer considered him part of their lives. Then, he locked eyes with Emily and quietly spoke.
Do you hate me? Can't you help me out, please?
Hearing this, Emily stared intently at him for a moment. Then, in the next moment, she said something shocking.
I hate you. You were friendly with someone other than Mom. And that's gross.
Though she was young, she seemed to understand what was happening. Still, for Mike to say, help me out. How pathetic. I pulled 5 $20 bills from my wallet and handed them to Mike. Since you're probably going to be living in poverty from now on, here, take this. but it's your responsibility from now on. Mike, trembling, took the bills with shaky hands, clutching it tightly. My daughters and I watched him with cold eyes, feeling no pity for him at all. As I turned to leave, thinking there was nothing more to say, Beth suddenly screamed, her face a mess of tears and snot.
Are you just going to walk away? Are you really going to abandon your own sister?
You're the one who betrayed me first, didn't you?
How can you leave Mike like this?
Well, he's still the father of your baby, isn't he?
Even if I have this baby, I'll be drowning in debt and won't be able to survive.
Then you'll just have to go back to work as soon as you give birth. The best option would be to borrow from our parents rather than from loan sharks. I don't know how much they'll be willing to lend, but if you split it with Mike's parents, you should manage somehow. And once you're back on your feet, you can start paying off the debt little by little.
Somehow? You talk like it's none of your business, even though you're my little sister.
It is none of my business. You commit a crime, you face the consequences. That's just common sense. My words left Beth speechless for a moment.
Damn it!
She glared at me, frustration evident on her face.
I couldn't help it. I fell in love. When you love someone, you can't stop that feeling. You should understand, being a woman yourself.
I wouldn't destroy a family, with a wife and children, just to chase my own happiness. I don't understand what you did, and I never will. I'll never forgive you for what you've done, either.
Stop acting so high and mighty!
When I deflected her words, Beth snapped, descending into a near-mad rage.
If life's going to be this hard, I'll just take your money.
She lunged at my bag, trying to snatch it from me. Her strength was shocking for someone who was pregnant, as she yanked at my bag with incredible force.
Let go of Mom!
Don't you know theft is a crime?
Even if you take this bag, there's no money for you to get. The house and car are sold, remember?
You've got plenty of savings, so share some of it with me. We're sisters, aren't we? Stop being so stingy.
No matter what I said, Beth wouldn't listen. As we struggled over the bag, the distant sound of police sirens grew closer. Her wild, screaming outbursts must have alarmed the neighbors, prompting them to call the police, thinking something terrible was happening. My sister was restrained by the police officers who had rushed to the scene and was taken away. In the confusion, my ex-husband, who was in a daze and mumbling incoherently, was also led away, likely because his behavior seemed suspicious.
I did nothing wrong. I didn't do anything wrong.
Even as he was placed into the police car, he kept repeating, "I didn't do anything wrong," over and over again. He wasn't capable of holding a proper conversation, so I was relieved the police took him away. Beth, on the other hand, reacted completely differently from Mike.
Hey, let go of me. This hurts. She's the one at fault, not me. I didn't do anything wrong.
She wasn't remorseful at all and instead threw a fit. My sister had always been impossible to deal with when she got angry, so in this case, calling the police had definitely been the right choice. Once they arrived, the situation immediately quieted down. Sure, Mike was my husband for many years, and Beth was my sister, but given the gravity of their betrayal, showing them mercy would have been the wrong move. This was how it had to be, I told myself firmly.
Mom? Are you okay?
You've been kind of quiet for a while.
I'm fine. Just wondering if maybe I went a little too far.
Not at all. Dad cheated on you with your sister and even had a child with her. Yet he still insists he's done nothing wrong.
Besides, it's so like you, Mom, to worry that you might have gone overboard.
You're too kind, as always.
With my daughter's gentle reassurances, I began to calm down. But then, a question crossed my mind. Who had called the police? I assumed it had been a neighbor, but when I looked around, no one was nearby. Hey, who do you think called the police?
Who knows? With all that noise, it must have been one of the neighbors, right?
But now that you mention it, none of them were around, even though someone reported it.
As my daughters and I exchanged puzzled looks, Emily silently handed me her kid's phone. On the screen was the call history, and there it was, 911. That's right. It was Emily who had called the police. I had always taught her to call 911 if she ever felt in danger.
Way to go, Emily!
You're almost a middle schooler now.
You used 911 perfectly. Well done. We all looked at each other and burst into laughter. 2 weeks later, the compensation was paid in full by both my ex-husband and my sister. As for child support, they agreed to pay it monthly until my daughters reach adulthood. Neither of them could borrow money from their parents, so they had to take out loans from consumer finance companies to cover the payments. My ex-husband's parents and my own parents were furious when they learned what had happened, and as a result, both my ex-husband and my sister were disowned, leaving them with no one to rely on. My ex-husband had to work 2 jobs to support the child, and my sister was forced to work until the last possible moment before giving birth. With their house and car sold and their savings wiped out, they moved into a rundown apartment. I don't know what became of them after that, but I hope they live their lives from now on without cheating and focusing solely on the happiness of their child. Carol and Kathy both now contribute half of their part-time job earnings to help support our household. The compensation from my ex-husband and sister went toward my daughter's education. A few years later, Carol and Kathy, now grown up, enrolled in medical school and became doctors. As for Emily, she's now preparing for her entrance exams this year and is also aiming to become a doctor, just like her sisters.
When I become a successful doctor, I'm going to buy you a luxury condo, Mom.
I'm going to work hard to become a strong woman like you, Mom.
Seeing how much my daughters have grown and how determined they've become, I feel proud. I hope to stay healthy long enough to see them get married and meet my grandchildren. How did you like this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.